Every story has a hook, and mine began with a stinging insult, a phrase that echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. Stupid, no class, no breeding, low life. Those words were aimed at my mother, and it carved a wound deep in my heart. My name is Maria, and at 25, I stood on the edge of a world that had once called me and my family lesser. But let me take you back to where it all began. I was born into a family that struggled with pride and pain, a legacy marked by hard work but plagued by judgment. My mother had dreams and hopes, but the poverty that surrounded her tightly wound like a chain, holding her back from the horizons of opportunity. On my mother's side, my relatives looked down on us, labeling us as less worthy simply because we were not graduates. My mother would come home crushed by their words, and it made me angry. How could they insult her? How could they ignore the strength it takes to survive in a world designed to keep us in the shadows? Those moments filled my heart with determination. I wanted to prove them wrong. I had long conversations with my grandmother who told stories of resilience, of strength, and how she dealt with life's challenges. My late grandmother was a warrior, someone who faced hunger and rejection with her head held high. I promised myself that I would rise above, that I would carve out a future so bright that they could no longer look down on us. To us, education was the ticket to freedom, and my weapon was to pursue one of the hardest degrees available, architecture. It was daunting, but I was resolved. While my relatives aimed their criticism and their mockery at us, I doubled down in my studies. Late nights turned into early mornings, library visits stretched longer than I had imagined, and weekends became mere shadows of fun. Friends peppered my relationships with distractions, whispering temptations of parties and young romances, but my focus remained sharp, almost like a blade. They told me I should just find a husband and start a family, to follow the traditional path, embody what it meant to be a woman of my background. Each suggestion to surrender my dreams pushed my anger higher, fed my fire. And that fire carried me through the layers of rigorous courses. I still remember the sweat and tears, the moments when I almost wanted to collapse under the weight of expectations. But I persevered, and when I finally graduated, it was nothing short of a revolution. My thesis was praised for its creativity and depth. I had poured my soul into it, reflecting every moment of struggle. I stood there in my cap and gown, heart pounding in my chest as the realization washed over me. I had done it. I had earned my degree, not merely for myself, but as a testament to my mother and grandmother, as an act of defiance against every scathing remark ever thrown at us. As I held my diploma, it was not just a piece of paper. It was a flag of victory, a signal to the world that we are more than their sweeping judgments. I could almost imagine my grandmother smiling down from the heavens, proud of her granddaughter's fight, her spirit coursing through my veins. But I could still hear the echo of my relatives, could still feel their dismissive gazes. They thought I would fade away, blend back into the background. It was time to show them that was not the case. I stepped into my new life as a licensed architect with a chip on my shoulder and dreams that soared high above skyscrapers. I secured a position at a respected architecture firm, earning respect and recognition with every project I undertook. Each blueprint I drafted became a building block of the future I envisioned. But in the corners of my heart, the anger I battled against them clung fiercely. I realized I wanted more than just a career. I wanted acknowledgement. So, I made the decision to host a showcase, an exhibition of my work. It was a chance to display not just my designs, but to demonstrate the potential that existed in my background, to remind my relatives of no breeding, no class, but instead a show of incredible capability. I branded it boldly, naming it more than just architecture. I called it a renaissance of my family. I poured every ounce of energy into the showcase, promoting it, sending personalized invitations to my family, the ones who had belittled my mother's dignity, inviting them personally. The day of the exhibition finally arrived. As I stepped into the venue, I felt an electric current of anticipation. The walls adorned with my projects seemed to breathe life into the dreams I had forged. It was vibrant, a mix of color and creativity, everything I had envisioned and exceeded expectations. There they were, my mother's family, standing huddled in a corner, wearing expressions that flipped back and forth between disbelief and disdain. I could see the flickers of realization in their eyes. This was not a simple showcase. This was a showcase of my soul. The night unfolded with a mixture of wonder, awe, and suppressed grudges. I introduced myself as a rising architect, defending my worth through my art. Each compliment thrown my way served as a reminder of why I stood there, to burn their egos and shove it back in their faces. I watched them struggle to mask their discomfort as the crowd praised my work, showering me with accolades. But behind the admiration, I could feel tension brewing. The night reached its heady climax when one of my relatives, a cousin who had always imagined himself better than me, stepped forward. With a feigned smile, he announced loudly, "So, did you design all this? Just like how you designed your GPA?" A murmur rippled through the audience. That moment felt like ice water in my veins. The laughter and cheers dimmed. It caused a ripple effect like a stone hitting still waters. I had half expected him to attempt a sneer, but the audacity to connect my success back to their mockery was pure venom. I steadied myself. This was the moment I had prepared for. I would not let him derail my journey. I searched for the right words, finding that balance between anger and professionalism. "Yes, I designed every piece of work in this showcase," I retorted, my voice steady. "I worked hard while you were busy belittling everything we built." You might think you can intimidate me with your sly remarks, but let's look around. The audience speaks for itself, not your inherited judgment. The crowd gasped, and I stood resolute, letting the words sink in. I realized something precious. A degree is a key, but confidence is a force. I had finally confronted the shadows of my past, shining light into those corners clouded with disdain and judgment. I turned my back on the chaotic scene that played out behind me, focusing instead on the people who had come to support me, who lifted me like a tide against the storm. I graciously accepted those who applauded me not for where I came from, but for where I'm going. I saw my mother's eyes flicker with pride, and at that moment, I knew I had won. The showcase altered lives. The crowd enveloped me, those who admired my efforts, the support felt contagious. This new chapter in my life became a testament not just of rebellion, but of the victory of dreams over judgment. This journey was not solely for revenge, it evolved into one of empowerment. From that day on, my life was more than competing against my past, but rather uplifting those who mattered. In my heart, I buried their words like daggers, and each successful project, each new structure that rose from the ground, became a monument to defy their preconceived notions. Now I stand as an architect with not just skills but story, a crafting of my own path. I am here to show that we are not what they brand us, we are who we choose to become. And so, the degree I earned formed the blueprint of my life. A life colored by resilience, an experience that both taught me forgiveness and the strength to thrive. What they perceived as us being uneducated only fueled a fire that would burn brightly evermore. Now, I invite you to reflect. Maybe you have faced a similar challenge, people trying to diminish your worth. Maybe you too will rise above, burn your own bridges to a brighter path. When you chase your dreams, remember the strength lives within you. Choose to believe in your journey. What was your favorite part of this story? Are you inspired to chase your own dreams, defying the judgments of those who doubt? Want to explore more stories like these? Subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay in touch with tales of triumph, resilience, and hope.